Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Tanya. Make this a little center. Whatever, okay. Okay, so we're going to start off with a little boy that needs a big refuah shalema. Rafael Chaim Meir and Simachasha. Anybody have any other names you want to add for Rachel Bat? Sol? Amen. Okay. Yeah, we're still saying for her, yes. Amen. Yeah. Amen. Okay. Anybody else want to put down some names? Okay. Rosalie, anybody watching? You can put down your names if you want us to make the class in the merit of a refuah shalema or anything else that is important. We are going to actually be using, after we say Tehillim, I want everyone to have time just to go grab a siddur. If you have the Chabad siddur, it's on page 84. If you have another siddur, I'm not even sure if it's in your siddur. Actually, it's very interesting because from what I understand, I just found out that the Alter Rebbe, the author of the Chabad Siddur, included the prayer that we are going to be focusing on today. He was the only one to put it in. When you hear it, you'll see why it's a very powerful and potent tefillah. And this tefillah that we're going to be learning today, based, of course, on Chassidus and Tanya, is a segula or a good memory. If you say it every day after davening, which I do, because my memory is a disaster. And, okay, I don't know what's going on over here. Here we go. We have Tavora, Bas Rezla, Rachel Bas Vega. Okay, good morning, Corinne, Shirley, Rosalie, Arlene, Helga. Okay. Oh, Shirley. Yeah, your sister Shirley's on. Hello. Yeah, hello from Vancouver, Shirley. Okay, best regards from Barb. Now that's bringing technology in together. Okay, we're going to say Tehillim together. Lamatzech mizmar David yancha dinar b'yom tzara yisagevcha Shem Elahei Yaakov yishlach ezrecha mikodesh u'mitzion yisadecha yiskar kol mechasecha v'lascha yidash nesela yiten lecha chavavecha v'chol atzascha yimale Rana b'shuvasecha u'b'shem Eloheinu nigol yimalei Adonai kol mashavasecha Ati yadati ki yashir Adonai mishicho yanei mishmei kotra b'gvuros yesha yamina Ela v'recha ve'ela v'asusa v'nachnu v'shem Adonai Eloheinu naskir Hema karav v'nafal v'nachnu kamnu v'nisadad Adonai v'ashia Hamelech ya'anenu v'yom karinu. I'm not centering. It looks really funny for me over here. Okay, so if you turn to page 84 on the bottom half of the siddur, okay, page 84, look at the bottom half, okay? What do you see? Or it's actually it's the last part. What do you see? The title of that prayer being called? Where do you think these were cultivated from? The Alter Rebbe said, put them together and put them into the siddur. You want to look at them and see where, huh? You hear them? Want to try again? Yes, from the Torah. There are 6 times that God uses the word zachor. 6. And the Alter Rebbe put them down here in a group and said, as Jews, when God says to remember, he's not saying, oh, if you happen to be walking down the street and you're reminded of something, the Alter Rebbe says, you have to make a clear, conscious move to remember these 6 things every day. And so, based on our class last week when we were talking about marriage, we spoke about the 10 Commandments, I'm going to take these 6 remembrances and channel them to a marriage. Okay? You ready for that? Because I feel like not only will it benefit our awareness of Hashem and remembering every day what Hashem wants us to remember, and let's just say what they are. The first one is, remember that God took you out of Egypt. Of course, we know we have to remember that. Number 2, be aware and guard your soul lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen. And here the mitzvah is talking about when we stood at Sinai. God says, as Jews, you want to keep the Judaism in your family? Remind your children about Har Sinai. What you like, what you stood around, what the experience was, Hashem's voice, the Ten Commandments. Remember and remind your children. What's the third one? Zachor et asher salacha Amalek. Now we know that right before Purim, what do? We come to Shul and we read a special portion of the Torah that reminds us what Amalek did. But Hashem really wants us to remember it every day. What did Amalek do? Why do we have to remember Amalek? Anybody know? Put it down over here. Why do we have to remember Amalek? Okay, so he did something else, Barbara, on that line, that this very, very significant part of Amalek that we have to remember. It says over here, he says, he cut down the weak and the straggle behind you, and he did not fear God. Therefore, when the Lord your God will relieve you of all your enemies around you, you have to remember Amalek. What did Amalek do when he tried to eradicate the Jews? When they had just witnessed coming out of Egypt. Hello. They saw 10 commandments. They saw the firstborn was killed and not one Jew. They saw the plagues. They saw the splitting of the sea. They saw how all the Egyptians' animals died, none of the Jews. They saw how they were drinking bloody water, we had fresh water. This was such an awareness. Everybody knew God. Could you tell me, guys, if you witnessed one of those, would you not walk around saying, I'm a believer? Of course you would, right? Because it was in front of your eyes. Hashem gave 10, and they walked out of Mitzrayim. Believers, comes look Amalek and says, you really believe in that? You think you saw that? That was just, sorcery. That was tricky. That was not of God. And he started to cloud the judgment of the Jewish person. And we have that today, my friends. We have Amalek today, fresh and alert and ready to attack. We go through an experience in life where we mamish see Hashem in our life. And we get excited and we grow in our mitzvahs. We start wanting to give more tzedakah, and someone goes, you believe that was a miracle? Are you nuts? That was just an ordinary experience. It was a fluke. How many times have we heard that? We say, that's hashgacha pratis. They go, no. Am I doing the facial expressions well enough? No. Oh, yeah. That's Amalek. That is Amalek. And Hashem says to us, remember Amalek every day, not just before Purim, not just before Pesach. Every day there are going to be people that are going to be challenging your connection to Hashem, your Kabbalat Ol, your Yirat Shamayim, your love for Hashem. They will challenge you like Amalek did. All the nations, by the way, when the Jews came out of Egypt, they were scared out of their wits. Amalek was the first one to laugh at the Jews and laugh at God and say, you actually believe that's God's strength? I'll show you. Right? When Hashem says to do away, he means to do away. But this attitude literally attacks a person all the time. When I say hashgacha pratis and someone says, no, that was just a coincidence, you have to stand strong and say to yourself, okay, it's in Amalek's voice, that's fine. Hashem created Amalek, but I'm not going to allow that to enter into my psyche or into my neshama. And when we know that, when you know your enemy, you can tackle it, right? If you know what you're allergic to, you know not to eat it. If you're in the dark, there are children that are going through so many health issues until they find out what is the dangerous food that they are eating. Until then, they're struggling. Once you know, I can't have wheat, I can't have milk, I can't have nuts. Okay, now I can get on with my life. I know how to keep away. There's Amalek, that's Amalek, that's Amalek, and I'm fine. This isn't. No, okay. So that's the third one. Let's go to the fourth one. Zachor al tishkach. Do not remember how you provoked Hashem to the wrath in the desert. Okay. Just remember what we did to make Hashem upset at us, right? When it was our disbelieving in the man, when we wanted to go back to Mitzrayim because we didn't like the abundance of man. We wanted food. Where's the meat? Where's the cucumbers? Hashem got angry at us. Remember that. Just remember that as a Jew. Be careful at how we accept gifts and we're not kafoi tov. Such an important concept in Judaism. Do you know what it means to be kafoi tov? Someone who receives things, but they don't want to have to say thank you. They don't acknowledge the good. You find that a lot. You can tell me if you agree with me. You find that a lot when, let's say, people are immigrating from another country, and someone takes them into their home for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. And that is such a gracious tzedakah, right? Gracious. It could be a relative, it could be a friend, it could be a family member. And after you've made it out of your home and you're into your own space, a hard time saying thank you again and again and again. So there becomes this tension between these family members and they actually break up relationships. I've seen it over and over and over again. And whenever I say to my husband, how could it be? He says, because it's very hard to acknowledge the good that someone does to you. The human condition doesn't want to have to owe anybody anything. So if you open your home to me for 2 months, I owe you everything. I owe you my life here. Because if you didn't open your house, I wouldn't have been able to emigrate, whether it was from Russia or Ukraine or South Africa or Israel, wherever it might be, right? I owe you. It's easier to be kafui tov, to not address it and just ignore it and not to keep saying thank you because it's too humbling. It's a sign of a Jew is when you could be the opposite of kafui tov, to keep showing gratitude. We spoke about it. I think we spoke about it last week when we spoke about Yehuda, the name of Yehuda, of showing gratefulness. That's the sign of a Jew. That's why we call Yehudim. Yehudi is a Jew. Yehuda means to be grateful. It's funny that we weren't named after any of the other tribes. We're not called Reubenis or Gideonites. Oh, are you a Gideonite? No, you're a Yehudi, right? Even those Palestinians, Yimach Shemam will call us, there's a word for them, Yehudi, right? They don't say it with such Yehud. That's the word, Yehud. Everyone knows we come from Yehuda, a people that are grateful. Okay, so that's number 4. We have Zachor says Hashem Miriam. Oh gosh, what did Hashem do to Miriam on the way when they came out of Egypt? Why'd she get leprosy? Yeah. So what does this Zachor remind us of? You know that song? Don't talk lashon hara, don't. If you know you shouldn't, then you won't. I played for my kids, but lashon hara, which is not just a kid's problem. Hello, it's an adult problem everywhere. Hi, good morning, Michelle. Good morning, Flay. Good morning, Denise. And then we have the last one, Zachor et hayom hashabbat likadsho. Remember the Shabbos and sanctify it. So you see where I'm going to, where I'm talking about marriage. Can you see it? I'm going to start off with a song. No, not a song. I'm starting off with a joke. For some reason, I heard this joke like 10 years ago, and I just find it very relevant as I'm getting older. Because the memory, right? So there was these 3 sisters who lived in the same home. They were all widows. They outlived their husbands, and they lived together in a home. Sweetest sisters. One was 90, one was 92, and one was 94. One evening, the 94-year-old says to the sisters, oh my gosh, it's already 9 o'clock. It's time for me to go to bed. I'm going to go upstairs, take a bath. So she goes upstairs and you hear her, she's turning on the bath water. And suddenly she puts her foot into the bath and she says, oh no, am I going into the bath or out of the bath? So the sisters downstairs start laughing. Oh, there goes the memory. So the 92-year-old runs upstairs to help her sister. And halfway up, she goes, oh, no, Am I going up the stairs or down the stairs? Third sister, the 9-year-old says, knock on wood, my memory is much better. Was that the front door knocking or the back door knocking? So when we talk about memory, it's not a joke, and we need to do things to keep us strong and healthy. And as I said to you, one of the ways is to say the Sluman Tiskar every single morning, and doesn't take too long. It's called the Sheish Zechirot, the 6 remembrances. So we're going to tackle the first one. Leman Tiskar Yom Tzedcha Me'etz Mitzrayim Kol Yemei Chayecha. Remember your days out of Mitzrayim. Let me ask you something. If you came from a space that was not so pleasant, or an environment that brings up some very, very disturbing memories, Egypt was horrific. The babies were thrown into the Nile. The men were beaten mercilessly for years. Women, if they wanted to have relations and they wanted to conceive, they had to go into the forest and be with their husbands under a tree because their husbands didn't come home. Like, why do we have to remember that? Like, right? When you go to therapy and it's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. And yet, the first one of the remembrances is, remember you came out of Egypt. The question to you is why?
Because they're always people are trying to oppress us and to kind of like make us into their version of Jews. We have to remember that Hashem is always watching us and He's always going to.
So that's very, very nice point. The question is, so why do we have to remember Mitzrayim? I like that point about remembering Hashem. But why about the bad, like the negative memories of Mitzrayim?
I don't know.
And it makes you who you are.
Yeah, I don't know what trauma you go through as a child, or anyone that you deal with in your life, that trauma stays with you. It's in the back of your mind, and until it sparks up one day.
Anybody want to add anything to what Shelly said? Okay, so that's a very good point. If you want to add something, feel free to do so. You know, when we get married, we always talk about how when we're standing under the chuppah, there's not just you and your spouse, but there's 4 under the chuppah. Who would those 4 be under the chuppah? Your old self. We call it, in coaching, we call it childhood influences. You're standing under the chuppah, but so is your little version of yourself. Your 3-year-old, your 4-year-old. You, as a 4-year-old, is standing. And when you remember that your childhood influences are coming with you into your relationship, and like you said, Shelley, wherever you go, it pops up sometimes. You don't know when that would be. But remember, the way you deal with life, the way you deal with money, the way you deal with food. You know, you come from home where one family was very, very stingy, and one family was very giving. And that's going to play out when you go on a vacation and your husband wants to buy drinks. And you're like, why buy drinks? I have water upstairs in the room. I'll run upstairs and get the water. And he goes, no, we're enjoying. Let's buy drinks. No, I spent $5 on a drink. I spent 30 cents on a bottle of water, right? And you get into this argument and you think, what's going on? Just take a deep breath and laugh and say, I am acting now like I did with my mother when I was a child. We never splurged on drinks. We went out to Disney World. We went out to Canada's Wonderland. We brought everything with us. We didn't buy one thing. And that comes into your marriage. And it could be okay if you wasn't so heads on with your spouse who was always raised with splurging. You want 3 drinks, buy 6. And money wasn't an object. And it was all about buying. So now the two of you have to come to a relationship and sit down and say, let's remember Egypt. Okay. Let's remember your Egypt. Let's remember our Egypt. And this conversation, you know, we spoke about last week about the daily temperature read, right?
Oh, yeah.
I want to give you a copy today. The daily temperature. These are the things we talk about, daily temperature read. These are the conversations we have when we sit down together in the evening, at night, over a tea or a coffee or go for a walk. And we talk about things that are so different in our upbringing and how we're bringing them into our marriage, which sometimes be literally a head on. But if we talk about it and we actually laugh about it, we say, oh, so you're home, this is how you did that. Or even whether it's shopping, it could be, conserving energy. One spouse only wants the air conditioner off because it's such a bill. And in our house, we slept with windows open. Yeah, it was 108 degrees outside, but we had the windows open, there was a fan, there was a breeze, and the other spouse is crazy. We're going to schwitz for 4 months. We have an air conditioner, let's use it. So instead of fighting about it at night when you're ready to go to sleep, discuss it and say, let's discuss our childhood influences and let's come to a compromise. We spoke on Shavuos, we spoke about the mezuzah. We mentioned here that the mezuzah should be vertical and the other rabbanim said it should be horizontal. And the compromise, Shelly, you mentioned last time, the compromise is that we compromise. That's a massive, that I think if there was anything in a marriage that would be a success phrase, it would be, let's learn to compromise, because we are coming from two different Mitzrayims. Yeah, your Mitzrayim looks different than your spouse's. Unless you're literally first cousins and you were raised in the same house, and even then you have different genetic makeup. So no one has the same makeup. So that's number one. Remember Mitzrayim, talk about it, share it, and especially I really want to say is sharing it when you're in a good space, before it becomes that toughness. There's an interesting story about a couple that lived in Borough Park. I don't know if you moved to Brooklyn, to Borough Park. So it's a very cute neighborhood, but the traffic is a disaster. And it was one summer. So this couple who lives in Borough Park were really struggling with their relationship, and they went to see a therapist. And she said to them, tell me a little bit about your upbringing, and specifically how you met. So the Chassan and Kala, they're a married couple at this time, but they were talking about their engagement and their dating experience. And she starts and she says, it's so interesting. My family is from a small little city, a little area in Brooklyn. And one Sunday, it was a hot August day, we were coming to Borough Park. It was good restaurants, good shopping. And we were parking on 13th Avenue. And when we finished our parking, we get back into the car to leave, and the car wouldn't start. And here it was, schmaltzing humid day. My father, she goes, I remember it so clearly. I was 19 years old. My father's trying to start the car, and the plutter, and nothing happening. And suddenly we hear a voice coming from one of the houses on the top, small apartment, and this guy looks down and goes, hey, are you having a problem with your car? And my father goes, yes. He goes, oh, I'll be down in a minute. He comes down and he goes, I don't know much about cars, but you could definitely sit at my house, get some air conditioning. I'll give you cold lemonade until we call the AAA. So this girl says, so we go upstairs, my mom, my dad, and myself. We follow this young man. And wouldn't you know who he is? He turned into my husband. It was his home. And the therapist goes, well, what was it that you liked about him? She goes, I love the fact that he invited strangers into his home. He gave us to eat. He gave us to drink. He was so kind, and his personality was so outgoing. I'm such a reserved girl. It made me so comfortable. And that was it. When he asked my parents if he could go out with me, I was excited. And this became my husband. The therapist is glowing. She's smiling. She was wonderful. She said to him, how did you see this version of the story? He goes, well, sure enough, I hear fluttering of an engine. I look out my window. I see this couple, and I invite them to my house. And I was so impressed with the woman, the young woman. She was so graceful and so gentle and so calm and relaxed. Even though the family was going through such a, broken car thing, I was really impressed with her. And so that led me to asking her to go out. So the therapist is looking at the two of them, and she goes, so then what's the problem in your marriage? So the wife goes, this is crazy. She says, what bothers me about my husband and why we're sitting here and why our marriage is on the rocks is exactly what I felt in love with. She goes, in our house now on a Shabbat morning after show, my husband will bring home anyone and everyone from the synagogue. He doesn't warn me. He doesn't tell me, give me a heads up. He just walks in with the pack. I don't mind having guests, but at least tell me a day in advance. I'm bringing home 10 guys. I'll make a bigger challenge. I'll have more drinks in the fridge. But he just walks in. Anyone he meets along the way home from show, he invites in. I can't stand it. She goes, and now I realize what I was attracted to in the beginning of my relationship is what's driving me crazy. And she says to her husband, what I was raised in was that totally diametrically opposed. On the opposite spectrum, she goes, in my house, my parents, they're Holocaust survivors. So on Shabbos morning, we knew this week there's no guests. If someone knocked on the door, my mother would say to all of us, don't breathe. We're not home. Don't move. Don't move. Let them pass. No guests this Shabbos. So I was raised in that kind of home. My husband was raised in that kind of two different Mitzrayim, two different childhood influences. The therapist had to bring it up to their cognizance, right? To say, let's see what's going on. And once she brought this every day, they understood. And then they learned to compromise. How important is that? So again, there's a time in a relationship, like when you did temporary, to talk about the differences, and there's differences in everything. I mean, I always tell couples who are dating non-Jews, I go, it's hard enough just marrying a man. Like a Jewish man. Why do you have to go to someone that has absolutely different upbringings in everything? Everything. There's nothing that's similar. Why would you go there? Marry someone that's Jewish. Marry someone that's the same traditional level as you. Okay, we all come from different homes. That's going to happen. But we have Jewish identity. We all did Pesach. We all did Rosh Hashanah. We all grew up with Shabbat. Different levels of observance, but those concepts are not brand new to us. That's why our marriages have a much better chance of lasting. And when you speak to couples that are intermarried, and many of them do stay married till 120, but you speak to them one-on-one, they will tell you the challenges and how much they have to compromise and how painful it is for them. But for the kids' sake, they're keeping together. A woman not long ago, the mother was Jewish, the father was not. He wanted to baptize the child. She said, I want a bris. He goes, well, give a bris, but you have to baptize. And suddenly your whole world came caving in. Well, you didn't say we have to baptize the kids when we were dating. He goes, well, you didn't say we're going to have to bris those kids. Obvious thing. Our upbringing is obvious to us. So remember those childhood influences and keep them dear to you, but share them. Okay. What is the second one? No, the second. Okay, be aware, lest you forget the things that your eyes have seen, lest they be removed from your heart all the days of your life. Make known to your children and to your children's children what specifically, Shelley? When you stood before your God at Sinai. What happened at Sinai that we have to remember every single day? Anybody? Anybody know? What did God see at Sinai? What did we see at Sinai? That Hashem is saying to us, we saw Hashem. What else? What did we do as a nation? And remember, all of us were present at Mount Sinai. All of our souls were present. So there was something that we did, that we saw, that we were involved with at Mount Sinai. That was after, right? Remember when Hashem said, you want the Torah? And we said two words. Nasa v'nishma. We will do and we will hear. Maaseh, we will do. Nishma, we will hear. Okay. At that moment, what is that called when you say to someone, I will do? It's called commitment. We have to teach our children that even though it's 3,335 years later, we made a commitment. So this funny joke yesterday. Actually, I finished my brides and groups class So I shared this joke. I don't know if I should have. I'll share it. This Catholic guy comes over to the rabbi and he says to the rabbi, Rabbi, you gotta help me. I was cursed by my priest and I need you to absolve the curse. So he goes, come to me. I'm Jewish. Because I know you're the only one. He goes, no, I can't absolve a curse that was made to you by the priest. And I can give you blessings, but to get absolved from a curse, go back to the priest. He goes, no, you don't understand. 25 years ago, the priest married me off. He said, you will now be husband and wife. I need to get absolved of that curse. Can you please absolve me? So in Judaism, we have to remember that we make commitments. Baruch Hashem in Judaism, by the way, if someone has to get divorced, there is a way out. In fact, it's a mitzvah in the Torah. If it's a terrible relationship, you do get out. Yes, the Mizbeach sheds tears, but still, it's written by rabbis on parchment, like a very, very significant piece of paper. But what is it about commitment? What is it about commitment? When I say to you commitment, what am I asking of you? When your child says to you, when a job, a relationship, a parent, what does it mean commitment? Give me one word. What does the word commitment mean to you? What? No other? Do it no matter what, even if it's hard, right?
You gotta
stick with your word. Shelley, you're not lost for words. Anybody here can give us insights, give us something more. Extrapolate on what we've just said. Because commitment is a huge word. It's huge. It means that even if I don't understand, I made a commitment. Right? Massive. You don't break the commitment. Right? You know the story of the chicken and cat. They were taking a walk on Bathurst and they saw this big billboard right there by Bathurst and Wilson. They were advertising the new restaurant and they were serving, meat and eggs, the dish.
Like a breakfast.
It was a breakfast. Jews don't really eat that for breakfast, but it was a dish. And the chicken says, and the cow, they look at each other, and cow's in shock because he knows what that means for himself. And the chicken's just prancing along, and he gives a little poke to the chicken and to the cow, and he goes, look at us. Look what we do for the community here in Toronto. How wonderful. We give our eggs, you give the meat. The cow looks at the little chicken, he goes, moo to you. He says, it's easy for you to talk. You're giving just your little eggs. I'm giving my life. You're giving a contribution. I'm giving a commitment. And that's the way we have to look at our marriage. Are we the chicken or are we the cow? Okay. It's a commitment, big time. Couples have to think a long time before they're ready to make their marriage. And once they say, we do, they sign the ksuba under the chuppah in front of the witnesses. Listen to that. We have witnesses. In Jewish tradition, we have witnesses under the chuppah. It's like, I was there. You made that commitment. Don't try to get out of it. I was there. Right? We actually have two witnesses. And the two witnesses follow the bride and groom into which room? The yichud room. It's like, I saw you going alone in that room. No, you're really married. Don't give me none of that stuff. Maybe. And even if it's hard, it's meant to be. It's your challenge. And it's going to make you grow from it. Because that's really what marriage is. It's a growth system. Okay. So when we say, remember, Hashem is saying, you made a commitment to me. When we're under our chuppah, the woman goes around 7 times. And she's building her home with those 7 words of Kabbalah, Chesed, Gvur, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malchus. We're building a home that's based on tradition, on values, on blessings, and on growth, and on commitment. And once we get into that circle, that's why even if a chuppah has many parents walking around and grandparents moving around, right? But when they stand in the circle, they have to move to the side. The husband and wife stand alone in that circle. No one's in that circle. Which is a very, very powerful message for us, by the way. What is the message when we stand in that circle alone? Yeah, yeah. Even though we have to honor our parents, we spoke about last week, kibbutz of aim. They're very, very important, the Ten Commandments. But in a marriage, if a mother says to her son, I need you to come help me tonight for a few hours, the husband has to first ask his wife, my mother needs me, is that okay? And if the wife says, yeah, but we were supposed to go with friends tonight, we made plans already a month ago, he has to find a way. It's interesting, this is what Kodesh Jewish law says. He has to find a way to tell his mother, I would love to come and help you. Maybe I can come earlier. Maybe I can come tomorrow. But tonight, I set aside a few hours to be with my wife, and I need to keep that commitment. I don't know how many sons do that, how many wives do that. You could love your mother all you want, but if your husband needs something, unless he allows you, which hopefully would, if it's an emergency, of course, but still, this is our priority. This is the circle. This is remember Mount Sinai. You know, we're told that even when Hashem gave the Torah, He put Har Sinai on top of us, which resembled the chuppah. So that was a chuppah. We really had a chuppah. Okay, so today, I mean, in my eyes, today we're living through a very challenging time. I remember driving down Young Street. There was a sign on the lamp pole, and it said, "Divorce is $2.99." Right? Has the price gone up? Because I've seen it a long time ago. Is it still $2.99? Okay. And the reason I'm saying that is because they give us the impression that marriage is very disposable. If it's only $2.99, yeah. Wait till you sit down with a lawyer and it's $20,000 just for the lawyer's time, and then you have to start $4.99 per hour, maybe just for the phone call. Exactly. People don't. But think about the society in general. We buy cars, they break, we throw them out. I'm talking about cars, computers, toasters, glasses. The glasses breaks. When we were kids, you ran back to the up top, and he put a safety pin, and then he fixed it with his little screwdriver. Today, no one fixes anything. You throw it out. $150, I could buy you a new one. So with $150 for the glasses and $2.99 for the divorces, this is what's happening. We have to get out of that mindset. We can't be disposable. You know? The furniture. Every few years, people are redoing their whole living room. The couches. My mother's couch lasted for 40 years. It was an ugly green couch with plastic on it. You remember the plastic? Okay, okay. I want to tell you about the plastic. That was my bed for a year because we lived in a 3-bedroom house. My mother had 8 kids. And so there's 3 kids in one room, 3 kids in another room, and the baby slept on this room. And there was a couch. And I actually said, I want my privacy. So I got the living room. Okay, it came with a plastic couch, but it was my own room. Remember, as yesterday, my father let me have a little radio, and there was a Jewish music radio show in the morning. I would woke up with the music. I felt like a really healthy teenager. I don't know. I guess my husband's lucky. I didn't get much from growing up. Let me tell you, my early childhood influences. But my parents didn't throw out the couch. They worked hard for the couch, and they're working hard in their marriage. And they're still working on their marriage, like all of us. Nobody can say, yeah, I'm in a perfect marriage now, so I'm fine. I don't have to work anymore. You had a coffee yesterday? You had a coffee again this morning? Why? You had a coffee yesterday. Why can't that carry you 25 years? Because we need to replenish every single day our marriages. It's true. You don't go up, you're going to go down. Okay. What's our next one? The third one. We said the next one is Zecher Asher Salacha Amalek. And what was the word we used? What did Amalek do? Oh, Denise says she can't hear me well. She doesn't know if it's your internet. Yeah, I'm wondering why I'm asking questions and no one's responding. I don't know. Anyway, maybe it's this room. I thought there was internet connection here. I'm sorry. Do you hear me better now, Denise? No? I'll put up the sound a little bit more. I don't know. Anyway, you can watch it later on because later on I think it does The replay is better. What do we say Amalek did to the Jews that was devastating? Yeah.
In the belief of God, right?
Give me a word that I'm looking for when you make fun of someone. What's that term? Little. What else? Yeah. I'm looking for a certain word that I want to connect to our relationships. Cynical.
Yeah.
It's a really bad word. And a relationship that has cynicism can really unravel at its seams, because we really have to, we're going to finish now, we really have to learn how to be not cynical. So when Hashem says, remember Amalek, he's not saying just for Amalek. And we'll continue this next week. Okay? It's already 10:30. Okay.